Ladies and gentlemen, don't take this the wrong way, because I really do like the Navy and I enjoyed being in it, but their respect for human life is nil, okay? I'm going to be honest with y'all about that. Some of the things I learned while in the service, well, even public stuff like the nuclear testing back in the 50s, where we had soldiers surrounding the fields and we deliberately contaminated soldiers. And did we ever even give the families anything for that? No, we didn't. We didn't even care. And the Navy's the same way. I mean, I know when I was in the Navy, they used to do drug testing on us. And they would tell you, oh, this is a new experimental drug. You tell them, no, well, no, you can't say no. You got to take it. There is no when you're in the military. Whatever they want to do. And if you ever read the fine, I'm going to tell this to any ladies and gentlemen that have not joined the service yet, in the fine print of the contract, and you do have to sign a contract when you join the military, it says in the contract that they have the right to test things on you. It actually says it in the contract, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I didn't read it at the time. I didn't read it until much later when one of my friends in the military said, well, Joe, it's in your contract. And I went back and read it, and sure enough, it was in there. And, you know, they don't tell you this, and not outright. You got to find it for yourself, but it's there, and they can do it. And they really, some people say, oh, they don't have a respect for life because, you know, they have to be hard. They got to send people to death. No, they just don't care. They just don't. You're like your sergeants and petty officers all might care, but the big boys, the generals, they don't care. You're just an expendable asset is what you are.
Yeah, you're a human guinea pig.
Yeah.
You're signed on the dotted line to be their experimental subject.
Now, Linda just sent us a question. She wanted to know, she said, what is it, underground bases being used by military or by aliens?
Both.
Both, yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And not only by the military, but by other agencies and organizations, too.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And not only by governmental organizations, we would be talking about corporate organizations. I strongly suspect that the more powerful criminal syndicates would probably have their own as well.
They might, if they got
Speaking
the money.
of, you know, the Japanese Yakuza or the Colombian and Mexican cartels or La Cosa Nostra, the Sicilian Mafia, any of these organizations or similar organizations would have plenty of money and would be able to hire the experts and the technology that they need. And they also work with military and government agencies in many ways. This is not often publicized, but it's the fact of the matter. So, yes, the underground bases would be both military and civilian agencies, governmental and non-governmental. And, of course, there's an increasing body of evidence, mostly anecdotal, that also points strongly in the direction of various alien groups from off the planet also being present underground and undersea. So it's it's quite a zoo down there is what it gets down to.
Yeah, it is a zoo down there. It's you know, but we learned, thanks to the MilLab research, I've learned that they're not military, they're not corporate, and they're not actually government. There is a group, and some of them come from corporate positions, some of them come from military positions, some come from political positions. But there is a group that seems to be tied into all these areas, but seems to be rogue.
I've heard it described as the organization with a capital O, that it draws from all of these.
Yes, it does.
It draws from the military and from any military in any country. It draws from government and from any government virtually anywhere. Yeah. It'll draw from royal families. It'll draw from the world of banking and finance at a high level. It'll draw from organized religion, from the Vatican, from the Jesuits, and so forth. It will draw from other fraternal organizations like the various Masonic organizations, for example. And it may have dealings with extraterrestrials. It will draw from big business, from Wall Street, from the Fortune 500 companies. It will draw from organized crime. And it will draw elements, personnel, money, power, and influence from all of those sectors and organizations and agencies and so forth. But it is all of those and none of those at the same time. And I have heard it described as the organization. And it uses mind control technology. It has access to any money it needs.
It seems to have unlimited resources, from what I can see.
From anywhere. It sucks from any source.
It does. And I tread real lightly, and I told this to Melinda Leslie a while back and Randy Cookling. There's information we have that we don't discuss on the air because I don't want to end up floating and face down on a canal somewhere. But
yes.
And I do tread lightly on a lot of it, because when I started researching it, and I really started getting into it, and in the last few years, I made some really good connections here and there. And this is an organization, as far as I can see, there is no one can slap their wrist. They seem to, as far as our government goes, parts of our government may know they exist because they get funding from them, just like everywhere else, but the government is scared of them.
Well, it may be, and this may be extend off the planet for all I know.
It may.
It may be one of the. I don't even hardly know what to say about it. I'm not involved with it. I don't want to be.
I don't blame you.
I have heard it mentioned, and it may be the dark power behind the dark powers, and it may be itself a liaison between still darker organizations that are still deeper, still more powerful, with still more influence. In other words, this evil onion may have yet another layer or layers beyond that.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I mean, the more I look into it, the more I find, the more it scares the living hell out of me. I mean, there are just things here that we got past the first 4 or 5 layers, and then we started getting some really deep, really hairy stuff, and I'm like, whoa, where? You can find paper trail, money trail. You're like, oh my God. And
well, what it gets down to, Joe, is Satan may really be real.
Yeah, and he might be running this organization.
He might be. He might be the chief executive officer of the so-called organization with a capital O.
Yeah, because it's got power beyond anything I have ever personally heard or seen of.
Well, put it this way: it has its sphere of power, if you want to call it dark power, but there are other powers as well of very positive and constructive orientation. In other words, I don't put anything past this so-called being called God, or you might call it universal or cosmic intelligence.
Yeah, cosmic consciousness.
Yes, cosmic consciousness. And it also has great power of a constructive and creative kind.
Well, even inside this group, I have found, because I've been told by people that work for them that, stay away from this, but we like what you're doing, and basically we endorse what you're doing. And I've wondered why I've been able to get away with some stuff that other ufologists haven't been, that have been threatened and harassed. And the only thing I've ever been threatened about is the alien agenda. Leave it alone. And let me rephrase that. They said leave it alone on the air. They didn't care that I was involved in it or researching it. They just didn't want me discussing it publicly on the air, because some of the stuff is a little unnerving for the everyday citizen. But other than that, I've been told it, and I've been told more than one time. We like what you're doing. Keep on what you're doing. And there's a couple people. We've even had some call in mysteriously on the air and endorse us while live. And like right now, I mean, we're being listened to. I mean, the red light is on. You can see it. There's 2 red lights on one of my phones. One red light is to let you know if there's an open line. If somebody's listening to the conversation. And I have never in 8 years done a show that light wasn't on. And now I've noticed over the last few years that it's lit for any show. So, but then one of the guys told me when I was in D.C. that it's like one-stop shopping for them. He said, Joe, you have anybody who's anybody, either you or one of your hosts does, and he said, y'all don't do fluff questions, so it's like researching by proxy. And I'm like, which is kind of flattering but kind of scary at the same time, Richard.
Well, Joe, you raise an interesting point there, and that is that because the compartmentalization is so extreme, whether we're talking about the Masons, the United States Navy, the United States Air Force, the United States Army, or if you're talking about the Russians, the same thing, or the Chinese, or the Israelis, or anyone, because all of them are running such compartmentalized operations, even within, or especially within their own military structure, within their own espionage agencies. They don't know what the right hand is doing. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and vice versa. Think of this. The Navy has its own compartmentalized operations. Agencies within the Navy may not know what another naval agency is doing. And so, because the compartmentalization is so extreme, they themselves are not able to keep up with what all the different actors, agencies, and organizations are doing. So it's valuable to them in terms of finding out what's going on the planet to monitor what researchers and writers such as myself, Richard Dolan, you, and other people